And so if I wanted to connect with Tomiwa now, the first thing I need to work out is, why do I want to connect to Tomiwa? So say, for example, it's for a business purpose. And I head out there and I meet Tomiwa and I'm presenting that business purpose. And then he all of a sudden says he's an atheist, or maybe he doesn't believe in God. Now, that's not the reason why I'm there at that time, right? My goal at that time is the business proposal that I've come with. However, that communication or that connection can go south if I now change my purpose and make it about, well, why are you not a Christian? So we just major at that time on something that is not even integral to the purpose why we are there. We major on things that are really minor rather than things that are of utmost importance. So I would say that one of the things that can make communications, go the wrong way is when we major on things that are not important. And so again, before any connection or any communication, I would say set out clear objectives. Also, when you're dealing with human beings, do not put too much expectations on people and think that you expect them to be 100% or be the perfect piece of every human being. No, 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 no. I would focus on their strengths. I will pay attention obviously to their weaknesses, just because I want to work well with them and see how I can also help them in that weakness. And part of this, I think that, Joel, I feel that one of the reasons why communication goes south too is just because people don't really understand themselves. Right? People haven't really placed high standard on themselves, and they're placing high standards on other people. And so many of the times, those measuring on the minors is just because I expect you to be like this when I'm not like this, because I want you to complement who I am not, right? And so when you understand yourself well, you can empathize with other people. You can be able to empathize, and sometimes empathizing with people doesn't really mean that you necessarily agree, but that you understand what they are going through. And you're willing to work with them to achieve the main goal.
Yeah, one of the things that you said that that keep popping up in my head is focusing on minor, unimportant things, and that just make me want to add that for us to be able to focus on important things, we need to do the hard work, of preparation, before you actually go ahead and connect. Preparation brings clarity, and once that clarity is there, when you're connecting, you just connect, seamlessly. And so it's important that we do that homework, our homework. You want to understand who your audience is, or the person you're going to be speaking with. You want to have and understand, do some little background work. Like I remember that when I was going through the book, written by Joe Maxwell, you know, um, many people communicate, few connect. He said that you should prepare 2 to 3 questions, you want to ask. It's very, very good. You can also prepare a story, from experience, or you can even get it from anywhere. Interesting story, to tell. You can also take like a gift. It could be a CD, anything at all, just to improve connection. And when you do this, you discover that when you meet somebody, you don't get to discuss unimportant things or focus on minor things that are not important. I've shared a couple of times how my communication too have gone south. I think I shared that with Kingsley too. And then when I was looking back, I discovered that, oh, I shouldn't have said this. I shouldn't have stuff like that. So I totally get it, from where Kingsley is coming from. We've not talked about immaturity too. I think immaturity is one of the barriers, that we also have when we are connecting. People who don't. Somebody said that as we grow older, we get more mature. But the funny thing is that maturity doesn't always come with age. So that is a major factor. Immaturity, behaving like a child. A child will say, if I take it from you, it is mine. If you give it to me to play with, it is mine. Even if the thing is broken, you can have, in fact, the shattered pieces, they also belong to me too. That is just the way a child reason. Briefly, Paul, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah.
Immaturity. Do you agree that this could be barriers to, our connecting with people? When we try to focus on all that. Very briefly.
Yeah, thank you, Joel. I agree with you that immaturities can also be an obstacle to connecting, and I also agree with what Tomiwa and Chukunonso mentioned about assumption and expecting others to be perfect when you're not perfect yourself. I want
Yeah.
to bring a different under
Okay.
point that I believe is an obstacle to connecting, and this has to be with being indifferent, and this is what I've seen with our generation. We live in a generation where we stay on our mobile phones, we stay on social media, we don't really connect with those in the environment. And Simon Sinek made a very nice video on YouTube I've watched a lot of times, and he was basically blasting our generation that people don't communicate at their workplace because before a meeting starts, you're on your work phone, social media, then the meeting starts, then that's it, right? What about before the meeting starts? You take time to connect with someone, you listen, right? You are just listening to respond and not listening to understand. Right? Someone is talking to you, I just can't wait for this person to be done so I can respond to what he's saying. He's telling you something very important. I don't want to understand. I just want to be done, and so I can respond. Or I'm on social media and I'm not really. And when he's done, it's like, yeah, you heard I said I'm like I respond, but I really did not pay attention. I don't really understand what the person is saying. I'm not able to really find a common ground with this person. And this is what one thing I've been saying for years now. This is something I believe strongly that we need to go back to a situation where we really connect with those around us. We are too caught up with everything going on in the internet space that we don't even connect with those around us. We want to go on Twitter and judge people for their mistakes, right? Someone makes a mistake, you judge them. I was just thinking about something some days ago. You can be perfect for 364 days and make a mistake on the 365th day, and the world will judge you to the core, right? These are barriers to connecting because we are being indifferent. We don't want to know, we don't want to understand, we don't want to pay attention, right? We're just busy with, we just feel with, we don't care. That's the word, we don't care. So to connect, we have to be willing to care and actually pay attention to others and understand others.
Wow, thank you very much, Paul. Still on Paul, I just want you to say a few things on this quickly. There's another principle of connection. Thank you very much for that wonderful one, by the way.
Excuse me,
That,
Joel. Sorry, Joel. Sorry for cutting you. It's just what almost said was just so powerful, and I felt to me like you were moving to another point, and I just wanted to add something little to it before we move to the next
okay, very,
person.
very quickly because we're
Yeah.
running out of time.
Omo, I wanted to just respond to you and say that yes, I agree with you based on what I now see happening these days with social media and what people are doing, and what you also said about people wanting to respond quickly. And I just have two answers to it. I think that number one is the urge to appear smart these days in 21st century has become incredible. I don't know the reasoning behind it, but nowadays you come into a room and everybody just wants to say something smart. And nobody wants, for once, to actually think. That's that empathy we are talking about, to think about the other person, to put themselves in the position, but they just want to give the smartest answer. And it doesn't matter if that smartest answer or smartest comment undermines the next person. That's not empathy. The second one is power. That's the reasoning behind the example you give about 364 days, and then you get it wrong the 365th day, and then the world breaks you apart. It's just because there shouldn't be anybody perfect. So why should we agree that you're perfect? You should normalize and be like every other person in the world, and bringing you down makes somebody else go up. These are two things that are just beginning to appear. I think could be potential reasons why that is really happening. But it's something to think about, really, appearing smart, and then the power tussle, if I may say. Yeah. Thank you, Joel.
Yeah, viewers, this is a fully loaded, discussion. Yeah, so there's so much to talk on effective communication. I just want us to quickly go to the next one. Thanks a lot, guys, for pouring out this wisdom out there. Yeah, like I was going to say about the second principle of connection. It states connection goes beyond words. So what that means is that we have the visual component, we have the intellectual component, we have the emotion component, and of course, word. People feel like, oh, you want you to connect, it's just your words alone. So what do we have to say about that? Very, very briefly, please. When we talk about vision, I mean, visualization in terms of connection, how does that help? Talk about intellectual, all these components, how does it help? Quickly, Paul, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, thank you. If you remember, I started with my first what I mentioned was a quote
Yeah.
from John Maxwell where I said, "In connecting, speech is overrated and touch is underrated." Right? To connect properly, you talk about visualization, emotional, intellectual, and emotions. I'm most concerned about the emotions, right? We live in a society where, of course, productivity is very important, right? We want productivity, but to be an effective communicator and in retrospect or in approximately to also be an effective leader, you have to be able to connect sometimes, not all the time, sometimes you have to be able to connect emotionally to those you are leading. You have to show them that you have empathy. You have to show that you feel, you understand what they are going through. And this is where you cannot remove um, communication from leadership, right? Because all these principles of intellectual, visual, and emotions come into play. Now, as a leader, there was a story of a Coca-Cola leader who became a Coca-Cola CEO, right? And one of his goals was to meet with every employee in the company. I was just like, why are you meeting with the employees? Not the vice chair, vice presidents. Meet with the employees, right? And it was saying to be a good leader, he has to be able to really connect with those in the company, with the employees in the company. He has to be able to connect to know who are those working, who are those in the factory, who are those producing the Coca-Cola in producing the beverage in the factory, right? So these things are very important. In order to communicate or connect effectively, you have to be able to relate with others, right? You have to be able to relate with others. If you don't relate with others, you don't show understanding. You don't show that you understand we're in a COVID-19 situation where people have to work from home and they don't have access. Maybe they have children, they don't have access to daycare for the kids, right? And as a leader, you have to be able to understand some of these things and give grace to them. You have to be able to give grace. We need to give grace to others. And this, based on what Kingsley and I have been saying, is there's no perfect person. In order to communicate effectively, we have to be willing to give grace to and show and let others know that, you know what, we actually understand. We know how it is. We understand how you feel. We understand what you're going through, and we're not judging you. We understand. We are willing to lend a hand to you to help you. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that contribution, Paul. And I think somebody already mentioned this. I don't know if you're the one who said that experience is very important. Imagine you sharing, on a topic or giving a message that you've not experienced before. You're not gonna look real. You don't, the people don't really feel it. So people enjoy, people connect with, what you've lived through, sharing from experience, they can easily connect with that. So the reason I mentioned, because you talked about emotion, people may not remember, what you said to them. They may forget after few days, few months, or few years. But people will never forget how you make them feel, which is the emotional part of it. You get, so you discover that connection is just, it goes beyond words. Tell me what do you have to say about the visualization part, and intellectual part, briefly.
Um, this is under the principles of connection. Visual and the intellectual component to me, I think um I'll give a perfect example. I think in my current I'm building on a relationship with a female right now, and obviously I know that women completely, I'll say this kindly, women completely are different from men,
Yeah.
from a man. So, and for me, I've learned that by experience as well. Like for me, I'm more of a intellectual person. Like as visually as you want to make things rosy for me, if I can't intellectually understand it, if I can't really read the process and really plug in one to give me one, or zero plus one is one, or zero plus zero is zero, it doesn't click with me. So I'm more the way my brain really thinks is more intellectually or digital, kind of digital, ones and zero, not analog, like different processes. So how do I now connect with this female? So in that situation, I sometimes I kind of have to in a sense really sit down and listen and try to imagine it. In fact, gets to a point where the person is communicating with me, like talking by speech, and I'm literally having to write down things, because like if she's just talking to me and I'm just like listening, I can just be listening, but I'm not actively listening, because what she's trying to do is trying to like explain an experience, and it might not be making any sense to me, because like I said already, I understand, I'm in tune with myself. I cannot understand when somebody's like talking about analog stuff. It doesn't click for me very well on that spot. So I literally have to get my jotter out or get a paper and then write down the thing and like really just study it and actively listen. I don't say anything. So I guess my I'm using myself as a specific example. Like I will fall under the category of responding more intellectually than even emotionally or visually, because I feel like even emotionally for me, I like to always be the kind of person that I have to always check my emotions. Like I can't let my emotions always get the best of me. I don't know why. I just feel like if I ever base any decision in terms of communication with people on my emotions, it's never really it's not the full result. It's just a part of it. So I try to always like check my emotion more than anything. Like, is it really right for me to be too happy about this? Is it really right for me to be angry about this? Is it really like right for me to be a certain way emotionally about certain things? So I would say I fall more under the intellectual component more than those other two. And when I'm now trying to like in a sense, because you need three of them to actually communicate effectively. If I'm trying to now trying to like kind of go into switch into those other components, I try to like just be like, "Hey, okay, I don't need to be the smartest person in the room. I just have to sit down and literally listen actively, so that I can really get the juice of that conversation and I can now connect in a way." Yeah.
Wow, thank you for using that illustration to explain that. Definitely, you see, why somebody mentioned about common ground. Yeah, if you are the kind of person who likes to be intellectually stimulated, what if you are trying to connect with somebody who is not, who doesn't really, it's not under your intellectual level. So you discover you need to find a common ground. You discover that because you may be seeing all manner of interesting things. You can tell stories, interesting stories. You can give, political information, and you just be bombarded that you think you are impressing that person, but you are bombarding that person with so much information. The person be like, when will this person end and just leave me alone? So when we connect intellectually, we need to find the common ground. So that, because connecting is, we're taking the person on the journey. We're taking the person on the journey, and you want to connect with that because you're going to meet all kinds of people. Thank God for the person you're building a relationship with. Interestingly, the person will have to understand that you are the kind of person who wants to be intellectually stimulated, and of course, visually. You know, um, people want to see the way your face is. Imagine you are giving a presentation, you are frowning your face. People will not just be like, "Ah, this guy is like he forced him to that stage." Oh. He didn't want to present initially before. People already, that disconnection is there. Some people like to use their hands when they are talking. Look at good communicators. Some use their hands. Some like the lightning to be on them so that people can see them how they do their face. If you see some of these good actors, they don't have to say anything. Just by looking at their face alone, you'll be laughing. They are saying something, they are communicating something to you, and you already connect. So imagine the whole room is dark, and you want to come and display and try to connect with the audience. People will never see you because you are not saying anything. And maybe like 70% of what you're going to be saying, maybe you are a comedian, is by facial expression, the people are not going to connect with you. And that is why it's very important, when we talk about visualization too. Emotions, Paul already talked about that. People like the way you make them feel. If you can connect with them, try to find the common ground, share stories, experience of how you've experienced that is a personal experience. People will hold that there to them. I remember I connected with a girl from Peru, using that emotion component. Until today, she's still my very good friend. We're just friends anyway.